St Joan and the Disappearing Miracle. Classic Movies by Judy Dungy. Joan of Arc, 1948. Stars Ingrid Bergman, Josie Ferrer. Director Victor Fleming.
Ingrid Bergman had championed the telling of Joan of Arc's story since her arrival in Hollywood, about the medieval French teenager who, at the bidding of various angel voices, was moved to inspire a king and lead an army to victory. She was destined to play this role several times throughout her career, playing it first on stage in New York in Joan of Lorraine, written by Maxwell Anderson, as a play within a play. It was the greatest hit in New York at the time, and she received a Tony Award. Then in 1948, she starred in the film Joan of Arc, directed by Victor Fleming, which was based on the same play, and this earned her an Academy Award nomination. Unfortunately, the film was not a big hit with the public because it was at this time that she became embroiled in the sex scandal of the century, when it became known that she was having an affair with Italian director Roberto Rossellini, and worse still, was having his baby out of wedlock. The film was subsequently cut by 45 minutes, thereby giving me a whole lot of subsequent heartache when attempting to write this piece. More about that shortly. Because of her role as Joan, Ingrid Bergman's public persona had become one of purity and saintliness. She had also played a nun in 1945's The Bells of St Mary's, to the point that she had become known as Saint Bergman. So when the scandal broke out, people were doubly horrified. Bergman later said, "People saw me in Joan of Arc and declared me a saint. I'm not, I'm just a woman, another human being." She fled from the scandal with Rossellini and began making films with him in Italy, first the breakthrough film Stromboli, and later, in 1953, Rossellini directed her in the play Joan of Arc at the Stake, a surreal musical by Paul Claudel and Arthur Honegger in Naples. They took the play around Europe, and in 1953 one of the live performances was adapted and released as a film, marking the second time she'd played the role in a play and the third time on film. Bergman later starred in the 1958 picture The Inn of the Sixth Happiness, another film about a young, unknown girl moved to undertake a long journey to achieve great things, in this case, saving Chinese orphans. I actually came to be interested in Ingrid's journey when my Facebook algorithm showed me excerpts from a 1928 French silent movie, The Passion of Joan of Arc, which had recently been released on DVD. When I bought the DVD, I was blown away by the film, which, as the title suggests, covers just the trial and, spoilers, ultimate death at the stake of this 19-year-old heroine, taking it for granted that you know the backstory of how she came to be there. This silent film is remarkable, really brilliant, most especially because of the acting of the main star, Renée Jean Falconetti, who is absolutely luminous. A grainy black and white silent film in French, it is one of the finest movies I've seen. However, I realised that my understanding of exactly what Joan of Arc had achieved was a bit vague, so I set out to refresh my learning. Instead of going to Google, though, I remembered seeing the 1948 film version with Ingrid Bergman many years ago, although there was only one scene I recalled with any clarity, which was where Joan meets a woman with a stillborn child and performs a miracle, bringing the child back to life, whereupon the child is immediately baptised and promptly dies. The miracle is that the child will now no longer go to purgatory, having been cleaned of original sin. Apparently this is not one of the obligatory miracles that Joan of Arc is credited with as proof of her sainthood, those being nuns cured posthumously, but it is part of the legend. So I turned on my streaming services, found the 1948 Joan of Arc, and watched her journey from highly religious daughter of a farming family, always in a dream, to determined pilgrim, dressed in boy's clothes, journeying to court to meet the Dauphin and convince him to let her lead his army against the English. Amazingly, she does accomplish all that her voices have demanded she do, and lifts a long-standing siege on the city of Orleans. The Dauphin is crowned. Joan leads the army from strength to strength in her shining armour until the king suddenly decides to stop. She is captured and sold to the English at Burgundy, and that's where the trial comes in. I streamed the entire movie and there was no miracle of the stillborn baby. So I finally checked Google, and the film I saw was one that was cut by 45 minutes. A new version came out for the film's 70th anniversary, digitised, and according to critics, makes it a much better movie. Assuming that my stillborn miracle would be part of the missing 45 minutes, I sent away, at great expense I might add, for the only 70th anniversary edition I could find in Australia. It duly arrived, I watched it, and still no dead baby. I looked at the cover, not the 70th anniversary edition, despite claims otherwise. So I'm getting my money back. But unless I hock my television, I can't afford to buy a genuine 70th edition from overseas. I may never get to see the miracle. And as far as I can tell, the Italian film Joan of Arc at the stake doesn't have the miracle either. I did so want to watch the story of a young autistic girl trying to change the world despite her position of complete powerlessness. Anyone ever heard of such a thing in this day and age? Judy Dungy.